Hey, welkom en leuk dat je kijkt naar deze eerste Voices of Fashion Talks. Het is, het is de eerste, Farida Sedoc, ik zit naast jou, gezellig. We hebben April Walker aan de andere kant van de lijn. Het is echt een eer om haar ook te spreken. Ik vind het tof ook dat ik hier met jou mag zijn vandaag. Laten we het eerst even heel kort bij jou ook. Wat, voor de mensen die jou niet kennen, wat doe je allemaal? Want het is echt waanzinnig wat je allemaal laat zien.
Nou, je het hoort, ik ben Farida Sedoc. Ik ben een kunstenaar, woonachtig en werk in Amsterdam. En ik mag een deel uitmaken van deze expositie in het Centraal Museum Utrecht. En ik heb een gedeelte van mijn archief hier tentoongesteld. En dat bestaat uit t-shirts. En met name maatschappij-kritische t-shirts. En het archief bestaat uit 20 jaar.
20 jaar?
Ja.
Wow. Ja. Nou, en hoe is dat voor jou om dat dan zo te zien?
Nou, trots, blij. Ja, alleen mist nu April.
Ja, zeker.
Maar goed.
Nee, daar hebben we het zo meteen uitgebreid over. We have April Walker. It's such an honor to have you here with us in this talk. Good evening.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So I want to go back to 87 with you. Because 87, you started in 87 with a store. It's called Fashion in Effect. And people basically, they came to visit the store and asked you to make everything. How was that time for you, where it all started?
It was magical. You know, the 80s were very different than they are now. And I was a lot younger. So all I had was my imagination, you know. I didn't have the life experience yet, which really served me because I didn't see what I couldn't see. I saw what could be possible. And I fell in love with hip hop. So that was the driving force for me. And so with that energy of hip hop, it was like, we're going to do things a little different. So that first shop, Fashion in Effect, was like a melting pot, and it was a magnet for everything from graffiti writers to, you know, the hustlers to hip hop heads, to music, to MCs, to, you know, anybody and everybody that was young and part of that tribe and part of that energy. They would frequent, whether it was a 9-to-5 person that had a job, but it was culture that was kind of forming and brewing in the air. So we just wanted to express ourselves, and that's how we started the store, Fashion in Effect. Like when you came in, you literally had to tag your name on the wall, and you know, we had a homemade couch that we made, and Eric B and Rakim airbrush sweatshirts in the window. So the vibe was real, like artsy fartsy, but in a very organic and authentic way.
It sounds like a very fun period of time. It sounds like a very fun period of time. Like very open, very.
Yeah, it was open. It was like, it was a weird time too, because in the United States, you know, you had the crack era was getting ready to hit. You had Reaganomics. It was a lot of hustle. There was a lot of money flowing on the streets in New York City. But, you know, the club scene was crazy. So that was a canvas of inspiration for me. You know, roller skating. Now people are roller skating again, but we did that in the 80s big time. So we had a million skating rinks to go to, and all of these different backdrops, if you will, of places where you could see style, and not just one style, right? Because you had downtown Julie Brown, and you had that whole like rock and roll meets hip hop that was brewing meets surf. meets skateboard. All of that was like an intersection of culture that was connecting at that moment. And it was special because no one was judging, no one was putting it in a category at that time. It was just like, oh, that's how you rock, that's how you rock. And it was all these ideas flowing, and they manifested themselves in art and music and fashion and all these different ways. And then I think the bigger narrative was the socioeconomic factors of what was going on, and the fact that our voices weren't really being heard. So we chose to use art to express ourselves in that way.
April, what inspired you to open a shop? Because at that young age you had, that's quite impressive. And what inspired you also to make clothing?
I didn't realize it at that moment when I started, but a big influence in my life was definitely my parents. And, besides the magic sauce they gave us of believing in ourselves and that we could do anything we wanted, my father was in the music business. So I grew up very early on watching him literally dance to his own beat and create. And he was a manager. He worked with a lot of jazz greats. And then he went on to work with Jazz and Jay-Z. And then this is around the time when D-Train and all these great acts that in the 80s that I was like, okay. And I was just had that hip hop bug, of like, the hustle and wanting to do something different. So that was the first inspiration, I think. And then I went into Dapper Dan's one night, hanging out after the Apollo Theater. And for those that don't know, Dapper Dan was this like 24/7 custom tailor shop that could make anything fabulous is in terms of our lifestyle. And it was like, there was the opposition of what we were being told, like we were being followed around in Gucci stores and in MCM and all these stores. So he would take these kind of fabrics, if you will, and then he would reposition them within our industry, within our tribe, and make things for us because they were things that either didn't serve us by size or serve us because, no, we don't want you in the store. So we own the culture by like making it our own. And when I saw him do that, the light bulb went off. It was like an epiphany. At that moment in time in the 80s, Brooklyn was very different than Harlem. And boroughs, you represented your borough. And I was just thinking about creating for my tribe, and that was Brooklyn, right? Like I can definitely rock my own thing in Brooklyn and create. And that was really the bug for my tribe because we didn't have choices. You couldn't walk in a store and buy anything that looked like us, that was by us at that moment. So hip hop wasn't this multi-billion-dollar industry that it is now. It was literally like that spirit of entrepreneurship was in the air and the music was catching on, but there was nothing really in fashion art yet, except like the canvases of subway trains, etc.
So April, why are
the 90s such an important period of time for the fashion industry?
I think the 90s were very important. It's a pivotal time for history because that's when we started pivoting in terms of making it a real business. The spirit of entrepreneurship definitely caught on in the 80s, but in the 90s, you started seeing these we created a multi-billion-dollar industry that exists today. And a lot of the foundation came from that period. So when you think of Cross Colors or Carl Kanai or PNB Nation or, Two Black Guys, you think of so many different, I can go on and on, right? Fubu, Mecca, Aniche, all of these brands embody the spirit of for us, by us. And that spirit was us elevating each other and really putting the spotlight on a culture that existed and created so many entrepreneurs from that and so many a workforce, right, that really fed a lot of families. So, that's how you learned about product placement. Before that, you knew nothing about that really, right? And then that product placement evolved from video to movies, like, you know what I mean? So that was one industry that existed. Then there was the production side of it, product development. And this is all just fashion. But then there was an intersection of music and fashion because they're symbiotic, they're independent, but interdependent. So to me, you can't speak about one without speaking about the other, because none of those brands really would exist without the support of entertainers and the music and the lifestyle that carried it in the beginning and helped it to grow. And that was just energy feeding energy, right? Because a lot of us from fashion, when we create, we're creating listening to music. We're creating thinking about the people that are our tribe in that moment. Like, I could see this one wearing this. You know what I mean? And all of those things. And those are like the batteries in our back to keep creating. And they're like these aspirations we have because we didn't have those multi-billion-dollar budgets to compete with the Ralph Lauren or Tommy Hilfiger. So we were the lifestyle. I had to think clever and like strategy wise, like, all right, who can wear this and help me get it on the map? That at least that's the way we were always thinking about. We knew relationships were golden, and it wasn't the only reason, but it definitely was about alignment and trying to find people that were brand aligned because they send that same messaging in the spirit of who and what your brand personality is, right? It just makes sense. We could support each other.
Yeah. So artists like Biggie and Shaggy, they started to visit your shop. What were the first items that you actually made for them? Do you remember that?
I don't. I think for Biggie, it might have been a jean suit. It was either black with white stitching. It was called a rough and rugged suit, or it was a blue denim suit with yellow stitching. But we made a lot of stuff for Biggie. I remember the conversation started with that. That I don't remember. I think it was the Eric B. and Rakim, that sweatshirt in the window, because it was such a dope sweatshirt. And we used to keep it in the window just because it was a great, showstopper, so to speak. And you'd come in and ask about it. But I think that started our first conversation. I'd see him all the time because he lived in my neighborhood. He was younger than me, but he'd hang at the train station. So I knew who he was without knowing. And I didn't know that he was an MC, and I didn't know that was his love. I found out that day when we started talking, but that's how that relationship started. Shaggy heard through word of mouth. And it was, I think Shine had put Shaggy on, or Shaggy put Shine had on. I can't remember. They're both from Brooklyn. But this is before we had the internet, think beepers, so phone booths. So it was literally like word of mouth. And that word of mouth was so important because credibility is bigger than an advertisement. If your friend tells you something is dope, you're going to more than likely trust your friend more than you would an ad in a magazine. So, by them giving a nod to their friend, it made them want to come and check it out, which I'm forever grateful for.
And April, was the dream back then to build a fashion house?
You know what? The dream was smaller than what it became. So, I think that sometimes we have a plan and God has another plan. And so I just think, I would have never imagined that I would have become this trailblazer for this multi-billion-dollar industry that exists today. I was really doing something that I loved and I trusted. I remember when I first signed my first lease, my mom wanted to cry because I had been called for the fire department and corrections department, and they were considered really good jobs at that time, straight out of college. I was 21. And she wanted security. She didn't want me to have the life that my father had, because the music industry is very volatile and it's very up and down. And I think if you're a creative and creator, you can understand that. But she didn't want that life for me. She wanted stability. And I understand that too. She didn't want me to struggle. I think she thought I would, and when you guys know, and anybody listening, if you really are passionate about something, really passionate, like those aren't like, you don't think rationally. You think like that's the driving force for you. And then rational is all right, relative, because what is doing what you love, that's the lotto ticket. You know what I mean? But so many of us have like the paper chase. But I think that if you follow your passion and you find your purpose, the profit will follow. I just really believe that. And that's only Jules from learning. But I trusted my instinct. So no, I didn't know, to answer your question. I had no idea that it would become this huge industry. There was a certain point early on when we started catching a fire where I realized this is bigger than me, what we were doing. And so then it was just all in, like there was no turning back, because energy feeds energy. So that energy was just manifesting and growing. And it was like, okay, you got to step it up for everybody,
So, how was your experience as a female, as a black designer coming up in a male-dominated industry?
I say as a Blexican designer, it wasn't easy. At the time that I started, a few things. Hip hop wasn't this industry that it's declared today. So that's proven in terms of dollars. So the garmental industry and the fashion industry was a very white industry that wasn't very welcoming to hip hop, because they didn't understand it. They thought that it was going to be a fad that would go away. So they were actually scared, some of them, to take goods in the stores because they were afraid of the customers. So you had to deal with that and convince these buyers that there was a market, that it would be safe, that we weren't going away, that they would make good on their investment. And then try being young, try being Blexican, try being hip hopped out. I was farmers every day, shell toes and these two braids, at that time. And it was just, I didn't look like anything that they were used to. So, and then I was at that time, the first woman in an all dominated male industry. So, not only had I had to deal with it from the buyer side, but I also had to deal with it from my counterparts and doing deals with production partners, with backers per se, meaning your facilitators for like distribution deals. They weren't the easiest because you had to make your voice heard. And a lot of times you had to learn how to play chess in order to make your voice heard at that moment. A lot of times it was a matter of making men feel like they had the power in terms of implementing and seeding your own ideas, but letting them think that they came up with the idea so that you could get what you want. It was all of these different things. And sometimes it meant standing on the table and showing your ugly head and saying, FOH, nah, we're not doing this, and being labeled as a bitch, so to speak, So it was just really listening to your gut and not overthinking that you're a woman. Like that was the thing. I think my father raised 3 girls at that moment, up to that moment. And he probably in the back of his mind always wanted boys. So he taught us the way a lot of men think. So we had that vantage point at that moment. The world was very different than it is now. We still have a long way to go, but it's come a long way. So I think that I had that lens as well to know, and it allowed me to navigate in that space. And then, like I said, growing up in New York during the 70s and 80s, which was really rough, made the fashion industry a little different and a little easier in the climb for me. And I didn't go in the room thinking I'm a woman. I came in the room thinking I'm just as good as everybody else in this room. So let's go. You know, that's literally the attitude I had to have in order to go the distance and not run out the room or give up.
That's a beautiful thing. Never give up. How is it? Yeah, of course. I wanted to ask you too something like, how is it for you? Like in Amsterdam, it's also here a male-dominated industry, and you're doing your thing here.
Yeah. Hi April. Just to be like quick for you, you're a great inspiration for me. I started printing T-shirts 20 years ago. And I thank you.
I like what you're doing.
Thank you. And I've known you through your work. Because we had Yo MTV Raps here. So since the age of 10 or 11, 12, every Friday, Saturday, we watched it. So I've seen your work and I've known your work, but through the documentary, the remix, I got to know let's say, the person behind the work. And I didn't know it was a woman. I didn't know it was you. So it was super inspiring to me after the documentary to be like, whoa, workwear, because the workwear suit was something you wanted to have as a kid, a hip hop fan. You had like the army suit.
It was like a must-have.
Yeah, a must-have, like the army suit, the track suit, and the workwear suit. That was it. And then you would like combine that with each other or the full attire. So that being said, I really recognize your story, and it empowers me to know that I'm not alone in my experience of feeling like I'm this warrior woman battling racism, sexism, ageism. And as what you said, I've been very fortunate to have a strong family base and circle. So I've had the confidence always to maneuver through it and to kind of use both my masculinity and my femininity and street knowledge to like maneuver through, but also my intellectualism and just being able to communicate and listening well what people are actually saying. And of course, I guess for no one it's an easy path. But for a woman of color, and also being young, it's hard to be taken seriously at the table, I think. But then you still have that how do you say that energy, indestructible energy. So that helped me through. But getting older, towards my 30s, at that point I was just tired, you know. I was done. It felt like fighting, like trying to kicking doors that just wouldn't open. And like my friends, my male friends who were also like in the industry, who were also starting up in the industry, were like, well, the doors are wide open, you know, you're fighting, but you can just go in. And so that proved to me that my experience was different than theirs. But so on, I think the key is to be able to reinvent yourself and yeah, just keep it positive, keep the vibrations high.
How do you keep your focus? This is a question for you both ladies. How do you keep your focus?
Well, I keep my focus through what April mentioned, actually. That was the cool thing for me about hip-hop, it was about everything. It's about music, it's about arts, it's about the people you encounter, it's about art, it's about food, it's about culture, it's culture. When I say keep the vibrations high, it's also mingling or hanging out with people who inspire you, and you inspire each other, like read this book or listen to this music, or and just broadening your horizon. And my question then also to April is like, how did you manage your emotions in business?
And also as an entrepreneur, how did you balance your emotions with work?
Okay, that's a great question. I think the answers are very different from then to now. Actually, in 1999, 2000, actually in 2000, I walked 2001, I walked away totally from fashion for a minute. And it was a pause that I took to recalibrate and to replenish. I became burnt out. I hated what the fashion industry became. And it just wasn't fun. It was like so heavy. It was such a big business. And I walked away at the height of perceived success, but it was really making a choice between me and the attachment of walkaware. And as a young person, my spirit said it was more important for me to be true to me, to myself, versus the perception of what success looked like. Because what it felt like inside was horrible. It was this heavy weight of, I had a Vegas showroom, a New York showroom, a LA spot. And then I had a big staff and it was a lot, to maintain. And it became very little about the art, which is what I started from. And I was tired and I was burnt. I started at 21 and now I'm like in my 30s and I'm reevaluating everything. And I thought it was more important now in hindsight, we know that's mental health. Signing out, like, I'm gonna pause and put this on shelf. Like, it's become this huge machine. It's not about the art anymore. Let me go and see what I really want out of life. So my spirituality, the connection I had in that vertical alignment was really key. I took some time. I still did my entrepreneurial ventures, other ventures at that time, but a lot of it was about walks in the park, getting grounded with nature, getting grounded with my higher power. I believe in God, and just really listening and hearing my thoughts, because sometimes we become so addicted to our work. I think that toxicity can be masked in passion if you don't understand integration of wellness and how to apply that. And I think that when I first came up, and I do still believe, so I'm going to say this twofold. I believe that if you want to be great at anything, you're going to have to make some sacrifices. So you can't have an extraordinary life with a 9 to 5. It's going to be difficult. What you put in, you're going to get out. So I'll start there. But with that, you still need to breathe. You still need to know how to take care of yourself. You still need to check for yourself and create space for replenishment, for revitalizing yourself, and for upgrade, circling up, right? That moment you were talking about your tribe, right? Because if you're always the smartest person in the room, you're not going to grow. So you want to be with people that will help you stand on your tippy toes. So I wanted all of that. And I just didn't even know if I liked fashion at that moment, to be honest, because I felt like an outlier. Like, the things, it's very superficial on one level to me, but then it's very artistic and liberating on another. So you had these two sides, and I really wasn't sure how to balance that at that moment. And I didn't want to do anything. I was like, I'm done, I thought. So that was the first step. And then really getting in touch with the wellness side was my saving grace, and really missing it, really missing it. So I started, the first thing I did was start a consulting company called A Walker Group, and then started doing a lot of ghostwriting per se, whether it be design, marketing, licensing. I worked with a brand out of the UK called Money Clothing. We did a licensing deal for them in the United States, a lot of different things. And I just found myself frustrated with clients that I was consulting with. And I found myself saying, if I had a brand, and then I realized here, the good news is Facebook came, Instagram came, all of these things started popping up. And once I got on and people were hitting me from all parts of the world, I thought, you know what? I can be creative now at my own pace. I can create my own story. I can pick up my bullhorn. I can take my time. I don't have to go back to the department stores and all of these big box retailers, because the world is very different now. So I can go direct to consumer and just story tell. So that was part of it. And then the other part was wanting to bridge the gap of generations and history. And I think there's been a disconnect with hip hop. So I want us to preserve our culture as we move forward and continue to move forward, but connect that thread. So that was important to me. In terms of wellness, my wellness right now is a lifestyle, and the way I deal with it is being very intentional about it. Being very intentional about it, especially right now. We're dealing with the world is upside down. And so we have to remember, like, we get to do what we love. This is a blessing that we are able to do it, right? So just treat it as that. And if you need a day, take it. The world is going to go on when you're not here. So we got to keep that in check and remember, while we're here, we have to be so present and listen to ourselves. So non-negotiables, making yourself non-negotiable. What are those practices that feed your soul outside of just what you love that you're doing to make money, right? That's one thing, right? And a lot of us are artistic, and this is what we do to make money. We create. That's great. But I need you to step outside of that and just be. Can you just be? And if you can't, that's a reevaluation period for you, because as a human, we should be able to just be. Listen to your thoughts, take a minute, breathe, and those things that do that. Like, and those look different to us all. We all have different toolboxes. For myself, it's every morning with a walk, non-negotiable. I hear my thoughts when I'm walking, you know, and it's nature. I walk to the park. Nature is a big canvas for me for connecting and getting grounded. And then the other part of it is working out. Like, and that working out looks so different on different days, but it's my therapy, you know. And then outside of that, it's meditating and visualizing and just being, so I can hear my thoughts, you know. Those are that's my toolbox, but it wasn't overnight, you know. It's been a long journey to get here, to understand how important that is. And then rest is so important. Like, if you're constantly grinding, I'm gonna put it in perspective for the creators. It's very hard to create from a very tired, exhausted place. Yeah. It really is. Your ideas are gonna be on steroids when you are replenished, when you pour it into your own cup and you get that rest. It just looks different, and it comes to you differently. And you guys can probably attest to that as well.
And are you still inspired by fashion?
I'm having a second win right now you know, for myself, I'm having a really much, and it's full circle because I started with custom, and that's where I'm being most inspired on the custom again that we're doing work. And yeah, I am, and I'll do a lot of collaborating with a lot of other people and younger people. And young people, my tribe around me that's younger, they really inspire me. So I said my next 18 months are just about a lot of collaborations, because one of my narratives in terms is community and empowering our communities. And in doing that, I believe that lateral cooperation creates vertical movement, and that I can do something with you. We can collaborate. If I have a bigger platform, then that's even better, because I can now shine light on you and show that we can work together and both lift up together. You know what I mean? I think that our communities have to do that globally. And then that way we're empowering ourselves and becoming a powerful infrastructure. And we're helping to create a healthier ecosystem.
And are you and are you interested in collaborating with like the big established commercial brands, or are you kind of hesitant?
Do a collaboration with Farida.
Yeah, let's make it happen. Wow, would be honored.
Seriously, like it's for me. It's just like I'm not, you know, I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not looking for it. You know, that's not where I get my validation. And I really think that if a lot of the artists that have become seasoned or are in the position, if we can empower others to put them in that position, or help them or amplify their stories, we all become amplified together. And that's a more powerful story for me. And that's more important to me than validating, because really, to me, those big fashion houses, we validate their success even more by partnering up with them.
So how do you think the world field has changed from where you started to now?
Black Lives Matter has been trending, and I think that that's a huge difference than when I started. I think inclusivity, that buzzword, would have been taboo in the 80s. That's different. I think that women have CEO positions, and that was almost unheard of. I can remember a time when you watch TV, especially sports. I'm a big sports person, and you would have never seen a female commentator. You would have never seen a female commentator in any industry. So, you know, we have made strides. We have a female vice president. You know, there's been strides, but there's still a lot of tokenism. There's still not enough. We're still saying the first ofs. And inclusivity isn't inclusivity until we create our own table. So, you know, I think we have a lot of work to do still.
Dezelfde vraag.
Hoe het werkveld is veranderd.
Yeah, I think money, you know, money came in, and let's say the big commercial brands all of a sudden saw like, hey, there's money to be made, and therefore it's interesting for them. And for me, I got really uninspired by fashion, actually. And my practice became, of my business became a practice because it became so small, the business, that I started also to lose interest and my focus shifted. So I think what's positive about now also is that that's okay, and that more of a, also what April just spoke about, more a holistic way of working, also through the eyes even of business. I feel we had that already, because that for me was the word like lifestyle, but it got branded, you know, so it means something different again. but I feel for me, as now a visual artist, I can take more freedom, and I let all
In
go.
what way you take more freedom?
Well, in creating, you know, that, and in my ambition, because I had that dream of creating this big fashion house, and I was like, either I'm gonna be a head designer of a big fashion house, or have my own fashion house. That was the ambition. And through time, I just got to know myself. I grew up, I was like, this is maybe not my thing. I face a lot of adversities in that path. So I reinvented myself, and I'm way happier than where I was actually, holding on to that dream. And I feel a sense of freedom more, and still create new dreams, you know. But still, I'm also interested in the question of this idea of a fashion house, and actually questioning it, like, what does it even mean, you know? And because if we're talking about legacy, we have a legacy, you know, and it's maybe not, it maybe not has grown out to this $1 billion brand that is a fashion brand and black owned, but I think that is called hip hop, you know, which is dominating the world. And let's say that is our fashion house, and that is our music house, and that's the culture, you know. So I think that whole conversation about this first big black fashion house is not even interesting, you know. It's like hip hop is dominating in all over the world in different forms also. So yeah.
I hear you. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
I think that it's a collective, right? It's collective work. And I think if we think of it as collective economics even, we can empower each other so much more in that way. And ideas don't have to be hoarded, right? And you be more giving to share in that sense of giving, you know? And so that's a really beautiful sentiment.
Very beautiful thing. Listen to your thoughts. It's like April said, listen to your thoughts. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. So, April, what are your plans? Because can you tell us something more about the upcoming audiobook, Walker Gems, Get Your Ass Off the Couch?
Sure. So I have a few things that I'm doing. I do a lot of educational work. I teach a course called BYOB, Be Your Own Brand and Build Your Own Brand. And I disrupt the education system here in New York. So I consult with Department of Education and work within the school systems, a lot of the hoods, and teach these courses to right now high school kids. And it's a 15-week program we do where we actually build out a prototype brand, and we do it on the canvas of businesses and fashion. So I teach that course with Milk D from Audio 2. From those of you who know Audio 2, Milk is chilling, kids is chilling. So he does the music component. I do the fashion, but we both teach business, you know, because in any art form, we think it's most important that you understand this if you're going to create a business. Those elements are transferable in whatever you build. So we do that. You know, I'm doing some online courses. I'm part of the Streetwear Essentials course with Parsons and Yellow Brick. Online now, and also I'm building out my own online courses. So one book that I wrote is for all creatives, entrepreneurs. And if you're on your journey in life, it's called Walker Gems, Get Your Ass Off the Couch. And now is a great time to read it just because we are in this pandemic and, you know, just coming back to life. How does that look? A lot of us are reimagining. And so it's either a great reset button book or it's a great like aha moment. Either way, it's really wherever you are in the journey, it has gems for you. And I did an audiobook that Milk also produced. And so we'll be dropping that soon, as well as the Rose collection, which I'm really, really proud of, just dropped. And it's really going to have a bigger drop for summer. And it's a legacy project for Walker Wear. My grandmother's name was Rose. And during the pandemic, at the end of the year, I started thinking about flowers a lot. And I'm also writing my memoir. So I started with my grandma Rose. But I think it was a very dark 2020 for sure for me and for a lot of the world. And I just was thinking about floral prints. And I'm not a floral print person. So I used to doodle a lot. And I found myself doodling again the same way that I did all the way up to my 20s. And so I just said that would be interesting if that was art. And so literally that's what the Rose collection is. And you'll see it in different color ways. It's spring, it's summer, it's vibrant, and it's life. It's a bit of hope, it's inspiration. And I think that what was in my head came to life. So I'm really excited about it. And that's on our website and our online store as well.
I'm very excited. What do you think?
I have just a funny question, as in, who is your favorite raps artist? Hip-hop
Rapper artist? Oh wow, that's too hard to say one. I can't say one, but I can say.
Who's your top five?
and top five changes. Seriously, it changes. So if we're talking about right now, what I've been listening to most recently is like J. Cole. I love his new work. Toby, you know Toby. I love his work. You know, I love Kendrick. There's artists that I like now, but those two probably I've been listening to a lot more than anybody else. I love Sky Zoo. I love Torre. I love a lot of people that are underground as well. Most Def, well, Yasin, you know, like there's a lot of great artists, and then top five, that would be Biggie, Tupac, Rakim, you know, and then there's a few others. So
This is a top 10.
Yeah.
Nice. So there are a lot of. Yeah. What about you?
Ooh.
A top. Give me a top. Yeah. Give us a top 5 as well.
Ooh. Well, I don't know what it is, but I like groups and duos. So I like, of course, my first love, the Wu-Tang Clan. Yeah, Wu-Tang Clan. I love Diggable Planets because I thought it was so weird when it came out and we kind of didn't like it. Yeah, it was like, this is not rapping, this is way too slow, what are they doing? But that album of their work just grew on me, and yeah, it's just a vibe. So I like also, of the lens, and then MCs. Ooh, so many. Of course, Lauren, hello. Lauren is like, for me, the queen. And then to switch it to R&B, I love Mary. I just love her. Yeah.
Mary is a whole vibe.
Yeah, Mary is a whole vibe.
Yeah, Mary. And I would say Gangstar, of course.
Guru was my when he first came here from Boston, and he gave me his demo. He was for my father to listen to, but he was literally across the hall from me. He was my neighbor.
Wow. That's so
That's
I
dope.
love Guru and Premier. I love them.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Next time I'm gonna tell you guys my top 10. I cannot choose. I cannot choose. So there are a lot of people who look up to you, April, and you, Farida. What advice do you have for young creators, young upcoming creators? So start with you, Farida.
I would say be fluid. Yeah, be hardworking, and we all. And let's say you're the boss, and you create the rules. So you decide what hardworking means for you personally. And be fluid, because if I look back, I was pretty like stern, like I want this and I'm gonna do this, and then if it didn't work out, I would be like destroyed. But I've been lucky to have people to like pick me up, But I've always thought of like, yeah, what if you didn't have that, the people to pick you up? And then I would give this advice to be fluid, Be
kind to yourself.
Yeah, be kind to yourself. Be positive. Be affirmative. Like, it's okay. I feel we as people, right from wrong, and really try to listen. And to listen is probably the most difficult part. Also, being young, growing up in the city, there's a lot of noise and distractions, but and trust yourself. Trust what you feel in your gut, what you hear, see the signs, Like, yeah, I would say that.
Nice, beautiful.
Yeah.
What do you think, April?
I would say a winner's mindset starts in their mind, and that's whatever you want to do in life. And a win looks different to us all, but whatever you're considering your win is going to start with the mindset. And your mindset has to be different than the masses, because most of the masses are caught up in society's mindset, not their own. So with that said, I think that you have to tell yourself and see where you want to go, and then envision that and feel it, and then start creating those consistent practices that take you there. And success leaves clues. So once you have identified what that looks like, look at people who have already done it. And like 98% of them will have certain habits that they do the same. And you can just cheat sheet right there, pick up those habits and start applying. There are a lot of standards, but you can do your homework and see what that looks like for you. I would say that it's not someone else's dream. To believe in your dream is your own. So believe in your dreams more than anybody else. I would say that your thoughts are going to create your words, and your words are going to create your world. So speak positive over your life, think positive over your life, and make it a practice of affirmations. Even at first when you don't believe it and it feels silly, I have stickies to this day on my cabinets, all over my house. It's really about you becoming your own student, your own teacher, and your own cheerleader every day. And how did I grow today? Thinking of that question every day and challenging yourself to grow, whether it's a podcast, it's a book, or if it's a mentor, or if it's a virtual mentor. Find a way to pick up a jewel every day that's going to sharpen your iron.
Wow, that's such a beautiful thing. That's such a beautiful message. What are your plans? Your upcoming plans? Wat heb je op de plank liggen?
Well, a lot and nothing. I'm in a place where I'm just trying to take the best care of myself. And let's say work goes on, this project, that project. So lots of cool stuff, nice stuff. But actually, I'm just kind of looking forward to the summer.
2020 was a lot inside. So I'm trying to like be flexible so that when I see, hey, it's a good day outside, that I'll be able to be outside as long as I can. And the days that it's like not so nice, that I can do the work I need to do, but also, yeah, I just try to create as much space now in my life to connect with family, with friends, to check my attitude at sometimes.
With yourself?
Yeah, checking in, what you said, like what are my thoughts, what are my goals, what are my dreams? Am I on this path now that will lead me closer to them or not? Why not? So lots of questions.
A lot of questions.
But I write a lot, so I write a lot down, and that helps. But yeah, cool stuff coming up, you know, it's always, especially now, unsure if it's gonna happen, yes or no, and how. So yeah, people will see it, you know, on the gram.
Follow Farida, follow April Walker. It was such an honor to have this talk with you, and hopefully we can meet one day in Amsterdam or in New York if the world is a little bit less upside down than now. But it was such an honor to talk to you, ladies, and thank you.
Thank you, April, and hope to meet you in Amsterdam or in Utrecht or in New York. I love New York, and I hope. Yes, it will happen.
Okay, ladies.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great day.
Same to you.
Bye.
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 Farida.
Ouassima.
Walker zit ik me net te bedenken.
Oh, wat stom. Ja.
Jij ook hartstikke bedankt.
Ja, dankjewel.
Inspirerend gesprek.
Ja, ik wilde jou ook eigenlijk een vraag stellen, maar ik wilde je niet... We zijn toch gestopt nu? Of niet? Of wel? Oh, oké. Oh, sorry. Over vrouwen in hiphop, weet je. Want jij werkt bij de radio. Ja. Je weet veel over muziek. Dus, maar ja, wordt er zoveel vragen gesteld van... Waarom zijn er niet zoveel vrouwen in hiphop? Of zijn er juist heel veel vrouwen in hiphop? Ja. Of zijn ze zichtbaar of niet zichtbaar? Ja. Maar ik dacht, ja, ik wil niet. Het is een vrij complexe vraag eigenlijk.
Het is een onderwerp waar ik uren over kan praten.
Ja,
en me ook natuurlijk heel erg bezighoudt. Maar het is ook natuurlijk in de muziekscene in Nederland is het nog steeds een scene die door mannen wordt gedomineerd.
Ja.
Dat is nog steeds zo.
Ja.
Maar goed,
we spraken met vrouwen. Ja.
Ik wil jou bedanken voor het kijken. Het was een fijn gesprek. Vergeet niet om te abonneren op dit kanaal, want er komen nog meer talks aan. En Farida, nogmaals bedankt en wellicht tot de volgende keer.
Dankjewel.
Doeg!